Hello everyone, welcome back to part 3, the final part. My website is ggnonline.com and ddarko2012, 2013 on my YouTube channels. Check out the links in the YouTube's video description. And the first article I have up is Army readies its Mammoth spy blimp for first flight. And this is from Northrop Grumman. And, it says here they have the potential to have to be armed with missiles, so it's not just surveillance. But they've had a lot of problems with it, and it's similar to Lockheed Martin's version of this Blimp, this high-altitude airship. It says here that it actually went down last year in southwestern Pennsylvania, so basically it crashed. I mean, there's the photo right there. So groups are concerned over arming of domestic drones. Well, I would be too, but they say it's unconstitutional. And it says here one of the police departments are considering using rubber bullets and tear gas on its drones, and the prospect of people out in public being tased or targeted by force by flying drones where no officers are physically present on the scene raises the prospect of unconstitutional force being used on individuals. So then we have Britain fines people who fail to register to vote. So yeah, I guess that's what it's all about, democracy and the republic and all that. It says here, oops, Olympic torch goes out after just 3 days in Britain. And it says here that the replacement torch was brought out and lit from the mother flame. Not uncommon for flame to go out, it says a spokesman. So next up we have London. We already know about this, but London deploys security force of 40,000 during Olympics. This is possibly for the false flag attack, so it makes sense that the military will take charge of airspace for the Olympics, like the NATO summit, where they just said, okay, we're declaring this, a secure zone, a red zone, and if you're in it, little prop planes, Cessnas, we have orders to shoot to kill. So now any type of global forum, such as the Olympics or these summits, they're just going to, take over the airspace. They're going to take over everything, block off buildings and stuff like that. This is to help keep these people safe because they're very intelligent, they're very important people, these politicians and these experts. So moving on next, we have It's Out There. Science Journal publishes details of deadly lab-made bird flu that could cause pandemics. So it's a mutant lab-created version that can spread easily among ferrets, which is good because that means that it'll spread easily among humans. So this is a weaponized form of bird flu, and it was released on purpose so that when it does get released into the public, as it should, or as it was designed to be, they could say, oh, well, you see, we shouldn't have published that information. So, but it goes on here, it says MBTA to spread deadly bacteria on red line and bioterror test. So I showed this older news. It's not that old, it's from May 3rd, but I included that because I saw this, in order to test sensors that detect biological agents that terror groups could release into subway systems. They're talking about your governments there. Homeland Security and the T plan to release dead bacteria at 3 red line stops during off hours. During off hours, dead bacteria. So, but it goes on here and it says the government had rejected a plan to release live bacteria at rush hour to simulate more closely how an actual attack would take place. So I wonder who actually proposed that to begin with. So, but it says here, white supremacists violently clash with anti-racists near Chicago. So it sounds like white supremacists attack the anti-racist. No, actually, this self-described anti-racist group, who is all about tolerance, right, and equality, stormed into this restaurant in Tinley Park on Saturday and allegedly assaulted members of an organization with white supremacy ties. So, but it goes on there and it says that the alleged assailants are believed to be members of the Hoosier anti-racist movement, and it goes on here and it says that they targeted a dozen members of the Illinois European Heritage Association that has been advertised online. In Australia, the Aboriginal are raged after a golliwog doll goes on sale in tourist shops in Australia. Blackface doll imported from China and sold by an Australian firm had begun appearing in tourist and novelty shops and resorts in northern Brisbane, and it said that campaigns had succeeded in the removal from the public eye, so they use force to do that. But it says here that older people who are reminded that dolls from their childhood are actually the ones that are increasing the sales of these things. So something that I've covered before, a trend that I've noticed is what the use of the word anarchist and injecting anarchists as a group into the political landscape right now. As the economy is degrading, people might actually start to search for something else, right? Instead of having to watch their family members and their friends get killed and shot and basically massacred by the federal government in the states now that are basically federalized, when they take up arms and revolt against tyranny. There's maybe some people that say, well, wait a minute, why are we doing all this? Why do we just not participate? Why do we not vote? Why don't we just not pay our taxes? Why do we just do our own thing voluntarily, right? Well, the social engineers, the powers that be, the New World Order, the global elites, scientific dictatorship, they already understand this. They have humanity and society down to a T. They've studied them, they studied their psychology, because they've designed them. They've designed most people to basically, they know how they're going to think. So they've engineered society. So they know that they may actually come to the conclusion that, you know what, it's probably best just to not use governments at all, because they're just used as apparatuses to help enslave us down the road. So, right, because most people slowly, they lose interest in politics because they get disgusted with it, because all these people with all these money, all these families and that interest and corporations, they sit there and they lobby into the government. They do all this stuff where most hardworking people, their money is going down the drain. They're losing their wealth. They're losing their standard of living, and that's because, of course, because you have like a Federal Reserve System and all that. Just basically, they slowly leech their way in, and then when it's incorporated, when these laws are incorporated, there's no going back. There's no going back. I've mentioned this before, like the song from Rush, the changes are permanent. So, always hope for your discontent. Like the drones, they're not going anywhere. You can lobby with a stupid, ACLU, but it's not going to do anything. The ACLU is there to push liberal social agendas. I mean, how are you going to participate in politics if you're busy trying to survive? You can't. You won't. So you're not going to get represented in Congress by these people. These people, just like everybody else, it's inherent to take care of yourself to survive. Some people, they're greedy, but it's not selfish that you're trying to take care of yourself. You don't have time to participate in the politics, right? So slowly, as this is happening, slowly creeping into your country, basically to take you over is what it is. You're going to have groups like this, right? The European Heritage Organization. So there's different scenarios. The Italian bombing, which was planned on the Informal Anarchist Federation, I covered that. Meet the Press, Jim Cramer boldly predicted the financial anarchy was coming to Europe. And then a former finance minister of Greece was quoted as saying in Reuters that social disruptions will come, and I would say a regime of total anarchy. But it says, but what has not been mentioned is the important elite trigger word seems to be anarchist or anarchy, especially when used in tandem with violence. Okay, so for those that do think that your vote counts and that you have to have a government, you'll usually use the argument of what? The roads. You gotta have a government because, okay, well, let's see. You gotta have roads. How are you gonna do the roads? Well, don't worry about people, two, three different parties coming together and figuring something out, right? With using the markets and just common sense and stuff like that. No, we gotta have a humongous infrastructure set up. That's most of the money, doesn't really go towards the road. We're gonna just take the good with the bad, and we know we're gonna have a police state tasing people, and we know and we go to the airport, we're gonna travel, we're gonna have our wives and our children molested by these mostly older people. One of them I just reported last time raped a pregnant woman at a Greyhound bus station. So we got to deal with that. With the bad or with the good comes the bad. So it says here that drive on an interstate highway, crossing a bridge on the way into work, taking a tunnel under a river or bay, get ready to pay. So it says here that it's all because of not because most of the money of your tax dollars is spent on security and defense, and God knows what else, right? Funding abortions in China, paying companies to move offshore. It's because Congress, your representatives, were unwilling to contemplate an increase in the federal gas tax. So you were already paying taxes. It's the whole reason for a government, right? You got to have roads and stuff like that. So you pay the taxes for the roads, and they say, oh well, no, now we're going to make you pay toll on top of that because we didn't pass a different type of tax that you're already paying for the roads, which will then be sold off to private companies because it's such a bad economy, right? Because the government was used to what? Oh, all of a sudden deregulate so then they can go ahead with the derivatives market and just hedge their bets and basically siphon off a bunch of wealth. So, you Joe Q citizen who's just been working hard away, slaving away, not having time to pay attention to all this stuff in politics, well, again, you get screwed. But hey, you got to have government, right? Got to spend trillions of dollars on killing people with drones in Afghanistan and that. So, but it says here, so eco-fascists, also known as environmentalists, take aim at senseless surfing on the internet by bored people. So this individual brings our attention to a report appearing in the Australian titled Senseless Surfing on the Internet. And it goes on here and it says, oh, one of them is YouTube videos. Yeah, it says that basically they're consuming energy, wasting it. So it says here are some questions you could ask yourself. For starters, it would be enough for the user to assure the result justifies a burden on the environment before making an internet query. Then are you really sure you want to search for this and destroy the environment? So just like the nonsense about CO2, which makes up about less than 1% of greenhouse gas emissions, besides the aerosols they're spraying, is what? Just stop breathing, and trees are bad, right? So it says here, scientists of the Russian Academy of Science say global warming is coming to an end, return to the early 1980s level. And a 15-year-old died after a doctor mistook TB or tuberculosis for love sickness. A 15-year-old schoolgirl died of TB after her bungling GP claimed she was lovesick. An inquest heard. That's like the person who died of cancer, and they said, oh, it's just all in your head. Yeah, but this is what happens to those useless eaters, and they could always go and blame it on the economy. Ooh, the recession. She saw 4 different hospitals and failed to detect it. So it's just lack of staff. We need more machines and robots to help us out, guys. Pet owners. Oh, and they do have they have robots now dispensing pharmaceuticals. That's right. Remember I covered that? So. Pet owners say cats' cancer caused by a vaccine. Owners say vet never warned them of the risk. Well, you better pay attention and realize it then. I try to recommend it to other people, and they just don't want to hear the freaking truth, man. It tears my heart apart. They don't want to keep giving their dogs and cats this fluoridated water out of the tap, and then they complain about having a big, gigantic tumor and all sorts of health problems as they vaccinate and say, oh, you don't get the rabies vaccine? It's like, well, my dog did get it when I first got him, but I haven't done that shit for like 4 years, and he's super healthy. He'll be 10 next February, and he's healthier and happier than most dogs that I see. But for cancer, Australian clinic uses in vitro fertilization to search out and destroy embryos with cancer genes. The eugenic practice of genetic testing to screen out the unfit has moved to a step forward in Australia. They use a process called pre-implantation to diagnose whether the cells were prone for bowel cancer, and when the cells were found to be free, it was implanted in the mother's uterus. And we have Vermont ordinance could ban pro-lifers from protesting at Planned Parenthood clinics. Then it says here that the Catholic Church is going to sue the Obama regime because of a law that requires virtually all healthcare plans in the United States to cover sterilizations and FDA-approved contraceptives, including those that can cause abortion. Something interesting I found from the 23rd, pro-choice Americans at record low, 41%. Americans now tilt pro-life by 9-point margin, 50% to 41%. Strong support for gay marriage now exceeds strong opposition. And I don't think this or abortion should be, quote, illegal, but you can see how the governments are used to support it and promote it. Then NHS launches Diversity Week with transgender art, while transgender contestant is disqualified. And while Britain makes up the first female warship commander, you have a female pilot kicking someone off for sexist remarks. And let's not forget India's first female Olympic wrestler.